PLSX, PLS Inc., whatever it is, like whichever one of those you believe in, those are the core coins. So if you're a big Pulsechain person, those are the top coins you should be holding. Like that, they're your Bitcoin, they're your Ethereum, whatever, however you want to like relay the message. Those are the ones that you should have your most money in, I believe. In my head, where he was actually praising marketing, which is what I've been saying for the longest time, is that marketing is essential to onboarding new people and getting exposure. Now, obviously, he was referring more to all of us doing the marketing out of the love for Hex. But sometimes that's something that's got to be paid for because your product isn't Hex. But outside of that, so I started thinking and I was like, are there any products that really aren't marketed? And the one that a lot of people bring up is Lamborghini. So I said, okay, let me search Lamborghini. And Lamborghini has commercials. I just went on their YouTube and they have a commercial for their new hybrid electric 12 V12 like Lamborghini. So, or actually he was talking to ETH, I think. He was saying Ethereum people need to get off their asses and start bringing more people into ETH, but I guess that translates to Pulsechain too. And what do you think are some ways that we could be better? Obviously, we have stuff like Hex postcards. We had the race car. You know, there've been a couple things, but like, what else do you think we could do? You do a lot of outreach yourself. I know that.
Eco Builder, that guy, he's got so many brilliant ideas.
Also a great guy.
And I think also a great guy. Yeah, I think a lot of the things that he's put out there have kind of like flown under the radar and gone unnoticed and like not gotten as much traction as they should. One of them is the DeFi puzzle. So it's like DeFi puzzle.xyz, I think. And it's just this seed phrase puzzle where it's an image and you have to figure out what the seed phrase is from that image. And then, you know, the other thing he's got going is the postcards, right? He does that with Togosh and a few other guys.
Yep.
And then now he's got this like reality TV show thing that he wants to start. What is, I mean, like,
so this
how random and interesting.
You think Trump being president means, and also the whole SEC thing, like they've just come after Elon. I just wonder what is going to happen with these cases, more particularly Richard's case, and what you think is possible and what you think the best outcomes are.
Yeah, well, let's take a look at what's actually happening in other areas, right? I mean, what did we have today? We had the Justice Department put a freeze on. It was they froze any enforcement cases having to do with it was a whole line of cases filed by Biden's administration, and they just basically froze it. I don't see why we're not going to see anything different. I mean, out of the SEC, although now we have Hester Peirce becoming the essentially like the SEC's task force leader. I mean, could we ask for anything better than that? We have Mark right now handling, his interim SEC chair until Paul gets around. But I mean, he's he would be a great chair, in and of itself, even if Paul wasn't appointed. But they're apparently meeting tomorrow to review open cases and and anything that they filed. To, I guess, the conversation, I guess, has to be something along the lines of, how many of these things are viable if we're not going to do enforcement based on, if we think it violated how you were going to call it a security. I mean, that's dead, right? So, I mean, how many of these cases from now on are actually viable? So
here's what concerns me based off what you just said. Like, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like freezing the case is bad because that just draws it out more, and there's more doubt and uncertainty. And if it's frozen, we don't, like, how bureaucracy is. Like, we don't know how long it's going to take for these new laws to come into effect for them to retry it. So I feel like we'd rather see a dismissal than a freeze. A freeze is still good, but to me, it just draws out the process, and we can end up missing the whole bull market because of it.
Well, when you say freeze, freeze could take a whole lot of different options.
I don't want to do that.
They just may stop filing stuff. They may decide not to pursue whatever they have open. But even if they did decide to freeze, it would be something along the lines of a notice to the court saying, we're moving to stay this action for X amount of time. You may find Richard's attorneys resisting that. It may be too late anyway. With respect to Judge Amon's ruling coming out it's going to come out anytime soon. We don't know exactly when, but we're definitely towards the back end of the window. So, I don't, we should see something, literally any day now. Even if they did file a motion, it would take time to process that through. Richard's side would have the opportunity to respond or oppose or whatever they wanted to do. So, and then essentially a freeze would just, if they wanted to freeze cases in place, all that just means is that they're not going to do any discovery, and Richard wouldn't have to file an answer if this case isn't dismissed. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, and I don't think it would. No judge is going to basically say, okay, you can freeze it indefinitely. That's just not going to happen. Like, you may be talking about something along the lines of, 90 days tops, where SEC has that amount of time to get their shit together, or the case, or the judge will just, move forward and dismiss it, or herself, or something like that, for lack of prosecution or whatever. But she's not going to let it, like, they're not going to say, hey, give me a year. And then the judge is going to say no. So, because it isn't up to the SEC at that point. It's up to the court. It's, they handed the case to the court. Court gets to decide how the process works.
What about with Trump and his new administration obviously being pro crypto, and a lot of people left the SEC? So how could that potentially affect the case? Like, I don't know anything about SEC cases and lawsuits and stuff like that. I only know criminal courts, right? So I can only state it in a criminal court way. So, like, let's say that the DA was under orders from whoever was above them in a criminal case. Now that those people have switched, is it possible that the prosecution ends up just being like, guys, we're not trying this case anymore? Like, is that a thing, or am I crazy?
Yeah, that's exactly that's one of the many things that could happen. Yeah, you're right. Just like a new prosecutor comes on board and says this case isn't viable, we're not going to pursue it anymore. Just get rid of it. Find a way out. Sometimes sometimes they plead it down to here, pay $50 and get the hell out of my house. Get out of my office, or whatever the case is. I'm absolutely positive that they've, the SEC has, I would guarantee that they've made offers in order to settle this thing. They don't like, they don't like their case. I mean, it was
right.
They didn't
like
like
a plea
they didn't
deal,
even like the case. Yeah, they didn't even like the case in the courtroom. Like, they didn't have answers for the judge that the judge needed. I mean, and then they're still sending out subpoenas to find evidence. They don't love their case. If they loved their case, they wouldn't need to do any of this shit, right? So, the head of the enforcement division at SEC left 2 months ago, Gruel, and went to private sector. So, there are some SEC enforcement attorneys that are leaving, from what I understand. I guess I don't know if the two Goldie and Matt Goldie and Ben Carvalho, the two that tried the case in New York, I don't know if they're still around or if they're leaving or what their status is, but I don't think anybody's really excited to move forward now with crypto enforcement cases in this new administration. I don't even think on the SEC side this is going to be, it may have been like, hey, we win this case, we get a promotion. I don't think that's the case anymore. You know what I mean? Everybody's career oriented, and they want to do what's best for them. And if this isn't it anymore, what's the excitement factor on their side?
You know what I mean? Like, that's the golden ticket right there. It's communicating with the people who are writing.
We rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of Hexaco.
I like that.
Let's do it.
I like that.
I approve.
You know what? They speak one language for the most part, right? Representatives, it's just money. I mean, they got to get elected every 2 years. So if you're not helping them in some financial way, then they don't. I don't really know that they're going to listen to you a whole lot unless their belief system lines up with yours. But their belief system is for the most part money.
Yeah.
So like if we were able to get through, a bull run and do pretty well, and if Richard has half glory numbers or quarter glory numbers, for God's sake, we're going to be in a position to change a lot of things for the better, and basically
Mhm.
make our voices heard in our particular ecosystem.
Yeah, I hope that we learned a lot of lessons, from Richard, and just, the things that we spent money on over these years. Some of it worked, some of it didn't. I don't feel like, I mean, well, I wasn't there financially at the time to contribute. I don't feel like anything was a total loss in terms of,
No.
like no one saw this thing, right? Like everything had a little bit of an impact, but now moving forward, it's like, okay, how do we ensure that that impact is being made at the right time to the right people? And to your point, Herbs, there's the Pulse Chain, the conference in Vegas, right? We're going to be having the treasurer of Nevada there. He's going to
Yep.
be speaking, and he, to your point you just made, the last term he ran was before my time, but from what RG has said, they did help him get reelected. The Hexicans did contribute to his campaign.
Yeah, I had a good long conversation with RG about that. I don't want to get into it because it was private, but like, yes, and that's why he's showing up. And if we can continue to do that and get crypto friendly people, that are aligned with our belief system. Not just, I mean, it's nice and all that, like, hey, we got a president that's not going to crack down on Bitcoin. Who gives a shit, right? It doesn't
Right.
really help us in the DeFi world, right?
Yeah, like for real, like I know these markets very well, and I don't give price predictions just because I don't like getting people's hopes up or giving them false hope or whatever. But without question, this asset will be worth more at some point by the end of this year. Like I have no doubt in my mind, and I think it'll be multiples more. So it is what it is. I've been doing this a long time. I can be wrong, just like everybody can, but I have a lot of faith. That's why I'm here.
Yep. 100%.
That's just a great message, man.
I just want to say, Richard's image is Richard's image. We don't. Richard can do whatever Richard wants, and he's going to, and he doesn't need us to defend him or say he needs to clean up his image. It's all a part of the plan with Richard for a long time, and I'm not worried about what happens or what Richard's image is. Even if the case gets continued, I'd really love to see how, and like it's got to be some, something, but it's unlikely. And that's all Richard needs to clear his name. The Interpol thing is stupid. We know that. Not worried about Richard Hart. He's gonna be fine. I am interested in and actively paying attention to daily and discussing internally Hex, eHex, PLS, PLSX, T-shares on both chains. Like tech is there. All right, the tech is sick, and I know people only care about number go up and then community and then like image and all that. And I'm like, dude, we have such a crazy history of a community that it's like, it's hilarious. And if you want to know about it later, that's cool. Like, that's the lore of all of this, is a secondary, tertiary byproduct thing. The community and the image of the community, that's all. That's irrelevant. What is relevant is, a public immutable ledger to publish speech on, to transact on, to move on, to do cool things with. Hopefully don't rug people, but unfortunately people get rugged. And Richard said, watch out, the scammers are coming to Pulsechain. So like he said that way before we even got started. So like, all I'm saying is the tech is there. If our power grids go down and this polar vortex and all this stuff, this blah, blah, blah FUD, dude, I have all the confidence in the world that I will be able to access when internet comes back up and the power comes back up. I will be able to access the Pulsechain blockchain, and I will be able to interact with my assets. Everything turns back on. Even if I'm just saying, like, look, these validators yeah, people think there's, oh, Rackham's got a ton. It's like, nah, bro. Like, who do you think owns the majority of the validators that are running these nodes all across God knows where? Where? In the air? You can't really pinpoint it. It's global, but it's like, so if our grid goes down here, I'm not worried about where the power may be still on and running somewhere. And if you have access to the ether and a signal, you can get there. Who needs to do what to rebuild the image? And yeah, it is up to us, but like focus on onboarding in real life, if you're interested in that, right? Like bring new people in, talk about it, maybe even send them a little bit of crypto, like get them to get a Rabby wallet on their phone, write down the seeds. Hopefully you're not at a bar and you have a place you could like do it like privately. But like just as like a tester, you could onboard someone very quickly and then just send them, a little bit of hex, like one hex, one pulse, like a couple pulse, and then like one or two pulse hex, and like, hey, boom, you're in, and like tell them why it's cool and why it matters. And then like if they're interested, then you take it further and like we really go in and we get the hardware wallet and we do the whole thing. But
having a conversation with Doc saying like maybe not also maybe Hex is not for everyone, but then your whole portfolio should not be for Hex. Your whole portfolio should not be staked.
Correct.
We're not 100%. I'm not 100% staked at 5555.